Today we are going to think about language and think about how different, basically think about the language you are using with your children to and how you communicate. And I always say, like, the first step in becoming more of a declarative language user is to notice how many imperative or how much you're using language in a demand focused way. And then your language will almost naturally change the more you notice what you're saying and how you're saying it, basically what you're saying and how you're saying it. To start, just a little bit of an operational definition of declarative language versus imperative language. There are all forms of communication. Our goal with language is to help kids understand what we're asking of them. And our ultimate goal for all of our kids, neurodivergent or neurotypical, is to be able to take meaning from what we are communicating. Some people think that you take meaning from the actual spoken word, and many would say that the meaning, there is much more of a holistic meaning to what we're saying. And we have to be intentional in the way we communicate so that our kids or students at Fuse are thinking about what's being communicated to them rather than just adhering to a command, implicit language, or a demand being asked of them. So when we think about or differentiate between imperative versus declarative language, imperative language is the command or demand or something is being explicitly asked of the child. Put your shoes on, stand in line, um, anything that we are expecting a child to do. Slow down, hold my hand. We are telling them what to do. So if we think about our goal as teachers and parents is to help our children become thoughtful social problem solvers, there's not much thought in that statement. And there's certainly no room for our kids to have that perspective taking moment of, oh, I see my mom wants me to be safe, so I am going to hold her hand, or I'm going a little bit faster than mom, so I'm going to slow down. If we say, for most of the kids here, go slow down, what are they going to naturally do? Go faster. Because slowing down is hard, it's unpreferred, and what is easier is going faster. And it's also going to mean that then mom is now chasing me, which is like a very funny, socially rewarding activity for them. If we say something that is more declarative, which by definition, declarative statement is something we are explaining or we're noticing or we're giving information without a true demand being expected of it. So we are giving information without something needing to happen. And our goal is obviously that they're going to think about what we're saying and act accordingly. But a declarative statement is basically information that is thrown out there and a child has multiple options of how they're going to pick it up. So if we think of a lot of our kids who have more of a demand avoidance profile, or we say a simple statement like clean your toys up, that is not going to land well, and they are going to want to not do that because it's now going from preferred playing with toys to non-preferred cleaning up toys. But if we say, oh, this is looking so messy, I wonder how we're going to, if the next activity is to paint, I wonder how we're going to paint if this place is such a mess. It allows them to think about, oh, right, painting would be fun. So maybe I'll clean up these. Or another type of declarative statement is, hey, I'm going to clean up these animals. I'm wondering if you're thinking about whatever, cars or blocks, or I see Henry is cleaning up the blocks, animals are still out. It allows a child to think about what we're saying and think about what they can do to adapt to their actions accordingly to what we're asking of them rather than just clean up. One of the reasons we want to use more declarative communication beyond helping them become social problem solvers and expanding their flexibility, expanding their perspective taking, is an imperative statement is very rigid and very black and white. And our goal with neurodivergent learners is to move away from black and white and into more of that gray area thinking, which is inherently harder for kids that think in a more black and white way. So if we say all day, put your shoes on, put your backpack on, put your jacket on, I will assume that in 5 years you will be saying those same three things because they will become very, very prompt slash demand dependent on what you're asking of them. If we show them a visual, or if I say, oh, it's really cold outside, I don't know if you're ready. It's so cold outside. Or if I say, oh, I have my jacket on, I'll be warm outside. It's allowing their flexibility to think about, she's going to be warm outside. What am I missing? And at the same time, maybe I'm pointing to their jacket. So I am then helping them look at me, think about what I'm doing, and think about what they might be missing in that moment of what they're doing. So using more declarative language has a multi-factor of helping them understand that moment and making their own thought about what they're going to do. If sometimes we will have kids that are like, nope, I'm ready to go. And then we'll carry the jacket for a little bit. They'll step outside and then they'll look up at us. And then we might say, oh, I bet you're kind of cold. And then they're going to look towards the jacket because, oh, wait, that's what she meant when she said she had her jacket on. And now I need to put on my jacket. It allows them to think. And then next time when we're sitting at the Cubbies and I say, oh, I'm going to be warm when I get outside, then now they will look and realize, oh, wait, I don't have my jacket on. So our goal is really holistically thinking about themselves in relation to whatever is being asked of them. And it really lends itself well to those kids who are more demand avoidant. And there's a great book by a colleague of mine, Linda Murphy, who wrote an incredible book on declarative language. Her and I train in the same place, and declarative language is a tenet of what we trained in years and years ago. She wrote an incredible book about it. I recently saw her at a conference that was on how to work with kids with a demand avoidant profile. And what she says, which I agree with, is using more declarative language allows kids some autonomy and allows them some independence and is the easiest way to get them to think about what we're wanting them to do without placing the demand that is going to send them 100% the other direction. So if we think about that, the way we utilize language, it's really going to be helpful in helping kids think about what we're asking of them. This is I hope this plays, hold on. This is about declarative language.
Example of how to use declarative language and de-escalation in a normal situation. So this morning with my son, trying to transition him into the van with school.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I was turning up the volume and now. Okay, let's try that again.
Here is a quick example of how to use declarative language and de-escalation in a normal situation. So this morning with my son, trying to transition him into the van with school, he was climbing all over the back of the van and not getting into his car seat. So 4 years ago, my instinct would have been to use an imperative, hey, get back in your seat, or Cooper, will you get back in your seat? Both of which activate his nervous system. So I said, I can buckle you in. Or I could have said, you can get in your seat now, which doesn't activate his threat response. So I did that. He got into his car seat and then he was like, Mama, you're taking so long to buckle me. And sort of like equalizing against me. And I could have responded with reactivity, which would escalate his threat response. But instead, I made fun of myself and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to buckle you. I can't believe it. And that de escalated the situation.
So that's one example of how thinking about declarative language and helping kids understand what you're expecting of them, but like she said, not creating that complete demand avoidance. There are lots of great slides in here that think about what is a declarative statement versus an imperative statement and how to switch an imperative statement into a declarative statement. What I would think about in your home or your everyday life, it's just like an example, like she said, of how many times you use an imperative and watch how your kids react. Many of our kids, like her example of her son, will react in a more dysregulated way. They will either run away or they will not climb over the seat in the wrong direction. But if you say things in a statement, and I always say to teachers, like the best way to start to use more declarative communication is turn everything into an I wonder or an I notice statement. And then you're taking away the demand, you're taking away the prompt, and you're just saying, like, oh, I notice it's time to go outside. I notice your shoes are over there. Obviously, you don't want it to be the same phrase every time because then you're turning a declarative statement into a prompt. But it's the easiest way to kind of switch your brain from direct prompts into more declarative statements or any statement that you think is a command or an imperative demand. Just think of how could I say this without implying a desired outcome from it? Of when she said, I can buckle your seatbelt, she is not saying you must sit in this car seat. She's just saying, I'm going to buckle your seatbelt whenever you come over to get in your car seat. So her desired outcome is not explicitly obvious to her son. So that kind of shows you that it is more of a declarative statement than it is an imperative statement. Obviously, if we're thinking about when should we use declarative statement versus imperative, there are times that are going to be safety. And we always say to teachers, if a child is running into the street, that is not your time that you're going to be using a declarative statement. You're going to be using an imperative statement like you need to stop. You need to stop your body. You need to come back. There are times that we will use more of an imperative command when it's a safety or there's a risk factor that we are trying to avoid. Another aspect of communication that is really, really important and very much underestimated. And there are talks, I'll do like a whole 2 hour talk for professionals on nonverbal communication. It's probably my favorite topic because I think we underestimate it and underutilize it. Yet in the world of social interactions, nonverbal communication is 80% of what people derive from an interaction. 20% is from the spoken word. There's a whole study on an interview process, and interviewees rate an interviewer based on their nonverbal communication at a higher rate, at that the 80% rate over the spoken word. So what we're missing with our kids is in the realm of we're trying to get them to use more language, which I understand, and we're always trying to get them to understand language, utilize language, use their social pragmatic language. We're missing that nonverbal communication is incredibly important in social interactions. the expressive piece of nonverbal communication and the receptive piece of nonverbal communication. We, as social beings, have to read our partner. And what is really hard for our kids is reading their partner and adapting their actions accordingly. They are waiting for that spoken word and they are waiting for that demand, and kids are not giving it. So it becomes very confusing. So if you think about your child in the sandbox and they're at a playground and they don't know the peer and they go over, sit down, grab the truck, the other peer starts to have an angry face. Our peer is missing that and they continue playing with the truck. This friend is now very mad, either gets up and walks away, hits my child, or grabs the truck back. And now we have a huge fight. What was missed in that is the 3 or 4 nonverbal cues that were given by the child that the child missed because they're not always reading nonverbal cues. It is very typical for a neurodivergent child to miss those cues because they're looking for the black and white, right? So a child who is has a hard time with that gray area thinking and that ability to socially problem solve is missing a lot of those subtle nonverbal cues and waiting for that very direct, very black and white communication. So our goal is to use nonverbal communication constantly throughout the day to help kids understand and appreciate nonverbal communication. One of the things I love to point out to parents is many parents will come in an initial intake or have heard it from maybe their neuropsych that my child doesn't use eye contact. I need my child to use eye contact. But the question is why? The why, but why we want anyone to use eye contact is to read nonverbal cues. So if a child does not appreciate nor understands nonverbal cues, why in the world are they going to use eye contact? So one, in a neuroaffirming way, it's very hard to process information and at the same process language, verbal information, and use eye contact. So what we want to do is evaporate the myth that we are pressing eye contact and understand the function of why we want kids to look at us. And that is because we want them to read our cues. So how do we get kids to notice us? Use more nonverbal cues so that they are appreciating the reason why our face is important and the reason why our body is important. Um, okay, so this this is a video. This video was taken a long time ago, but it's a very good distinction between verbal demands versus nonverbal communication. So this is with my daughter, and the first video, if it's set up right, is going to be me getting her to build a pyramid with verbal demands. What you're looking at is not the product of the pyramid, because who cares, but how much she is relating to me, how much she's connecting to me, versus how much she's looking at the pyramid. In the verbal one, well, you can make your own judgment, but she looks at me very little of the time and watches the pyramid more and more of the time. The more language I use, you'll watch her eyes divert from me and to the pyramid. Okay, so Maren, we are gonna make a tower together, and I'm gonna tell you which square to get, and then you get to make a tower, okay? Okay. All right, so get the blue one. So I'm just giving her verbal prompts. Get the yellow one. You can make your tower however you want. You get to be the builder. I'm just showing you which piece to get. Oh, okay. Can you get the green one? Can you get the blue one? And now the red one. And now
Wait,
the
I'm not ready.
oh
You're doing it?
yeah,
Now
you have a plan. And now the yellow one. And red. So you can see at first she was looking at me because she thought it was fun. The more I talk, the more it's not fun, and the more she's just looking at the building.
Okay.
So now this one, I'm going to tell her that I'm taking my words away and I'm just using nonverbal cues. And the important part to watch is how connected she is to me because she's realizing I've got to watch her face and I'm only doing things that I know she is competent at and I'm not stretching her too much. But you'll see how, when I take away the language, how much more it becomes a social relationship engagement over a product focused build a pyramid.
So, Maren, this time we're going to do it a little different. I am not going to use my word. And you are going to have to figure out which one I'm thinking about. It's like a magic challenge. Are you ready? Okay. Should I make space for you to put yours down? Okay. I'm just saying, whoa, is to be. Happy birthday!
So I'll show you one more video. This is of Maggie years ago doing a nonverbal activity with her class. She's saying, I'm showing you how to make this, and I'm not going to tell you. The audio is not great.
Okay, here I go. You're looking, you'll learn how to make a suitcase. Ooh, orange. Ooh, yellow. Whoa, this is long older than I expected. One color. Here I go.
So the purpose of this is she's wanting them to watch and model over her saying, fold your paper, do it this way, but having them problem solve. Okay. So that, in the interest of time, I will pause there. And we'll continue talking about all things language communication next week, and I will have more uh, videos for you guys to watch, different ways to use communication in everyday activities. But happy to answer any questions you guys have now around communication or things to clarify that I talked about. So the biggest thing I would say is thinking about your language at home and thinking about just think about your language and then how to switch little moments into more declarative moments. And hopefully you will watch your child respond in a different way. They're very used to declarative communication at Fuse. It's one of the things, if you have observed or want to observe, it's a great thing to learn from the teachers, is how to make every transition without placing this imperative demand, because one might say, well, they're going to get that in the next school they go to. True. But what we're trying to do is make them problem solvers so that if they miss, let's say hypothetically, they miss the direction of let's get out the red folders, that then they can look around and see, oh, everyone has a red folder out. I need to, and problem solve that moment. I need to get my red folder, because the more we create problem solvers, the more our kids don't get anxious when there's an uncertainty. What happens so much of the times for neurodivergent kids is when there is an unknown, they go into that fight or flight mode rather than assessing and problem solving a situation. The more we can use our language in a problem solving way, the goal is we're decreasing those moments of uncertainty and allowing them more autonomy to problem solve and to work through an uncertain moment. The more we prompt, the more we are taking away that problem solving and the more we're doing it for them. And so that we want to move to become as parents, the more independent problem solvers we can make our kids, the more successful they can be in the social world.
I have a question, Lauren.
Yes.
How do you use language when there is an actual like they're struggling to do it? Like Connor has fine motor or motor issues, and when we're trying to help him do something that he really maybe can't or is actually physically hard.
Yeah. So if it's a direct skill, you want to give a direct, like if it's how to hold a pencil, let's say, you want to say, use these two fingers here, these two fingers. So it's more when you don't have an explicit skill you need them to do at that moment. Like if he's running across the street, you have an explicit, you need to stop, this is not safe, and stop. So if you're trying to teach an explicit skill, you are going to give him the direct. So that's not even, yes, it's a demand, but you want to give him the skill he needs. Some might say, like Maggie would say, have a visual. If sometimes like fine motor is going to be a huge, for so many of our kids, is such a huge, they're going to push back. So if you have a visual of what it looks like, or you say, "Oh, wait, I'm doing it this way. This feels good for my hand," then that might help. But there are times when you need to tell them what to do. Like, for example, this isn't Connor, but for potty training, we have visuals of each and every explicit step of it. For bathrooming in general, pull your pants down, sit on the potty. Those are demands, but if you put them in a visual, it takes it off of you commanding that, and you can just point to them. So if there's some things that are fine motor, like buttoning a jacket or whatever, you could show them, or you could have a visual, or a lot of times now with the phone, you can create a visual, I mean, a video of like John doing it so he can see and be like, oh, let's do it like daddy. So it's less demand focused. But there's always going to be a demand in there because it's a skill you're trying to teach them. But you can come
Okay.
at it from like a backdoor approach sometimes.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Or if there's time.
Yeah.
Well, first, I just said the declarative language has been, I just tried it one day with Cooper. Like he kept leaving the door open to our like backyard
Yeah.
and, please close the door, Cooper. And, it didn't do it. And then I was like, oh, it's so cold. I hope like rats don't come inside. And then he
Totally.
I don't mind. Well, rats will eat all our stuff. And then he went and closed the door and it was very
Yeah.
exciting.
It is. It's the direct demand versus an indirect statement. Literally for some, it just doesn't. it doesn't make them react, and it's just a lesser way of asking for the same thing.
But does it, are there like, so I tried to make all these visuals after our visual thing and I did it wrong. I did it, they're not good or useful visuals. Are there, like, is there for the declarative language and for visuals, are there like resources or like common ways instead of saying put on your jacket, like, do you know what I mean? Like almost like something we could use like flashcards for or something just to
To
like
teach
get our
yourself.
brains going. Yeah.
The Linda Murphy book is fantastic. It gets your brain thinking differently. So here's the thing, if you come up with a flashcard, you're almost defeating your purpose, because if every time you say, I hope you don't let the
Mm.
rats in, you've now created a prompt. So that's then going to be like, now I want the rats. But that was novel, and he didn't feel that you were demanding something of him. Honestly, the easiest thing is ChatGPT is pretty amazing. You can
Mm.
say, instead of eat your dinner, give me 4 declarative statements. It'll come up with
Oh.
some great ones, but don't use the same one every time, or then that has taken the place of come eat your dinner.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
have to
mm-hmm.
come up with like natural, in the moment, organic, like, oh, I can't wait for you to try this. I bet you're gonna love it. Or like, oh, we're sitting down, we'll wait for you. Or like, oh, I have something fun I want to tell you. Come join us when you're ready. And guaranteed he's gonna come a lot faster with that bid than come sit down right now. Because you're inviting him, and you have something fun for him to hear.
That makes sense. Is there like somewhere where there's because Cooper, I think like through and through is like Mr. Demand Avoided, like Mr. Any demand, like yeah, that is just like a trigger for him.
Yes.
Is there like a resource that almost like explains the pathology of that? And like I have trouble like wrapping my head around the like I am your mom, I'm on your team, like why don't you want to do what I'm telling you to do?
Um, I think, did Maggie send, so one of our colleagues just did this incredible talk on PDA.
Really?
The PDA North America is a great site, and all of us have gone to the conferences. But Carrie, I can get the talk or the slides from the talk. I don't know if the talk is published, but the slides are incredible. And she does a really great job. She used to be a Fuse teacher, now does PDA consulting full time. She does
Wow.
a great job of explaining engagement and how to equalize over create a hierarchy. And that, I think, for my teachers was very important, that we need to be equalizers rather than creating a hierarchy, and how to not create reactions. So I can get the slides for sure. I feel like last week or something, Maggie was texting those of us who went for the slides. So I thought I'll email the slides for the PDA talk as well. They're very helpful. But PDA North America is a great site. I will say the caveat is it leans really, really loose. I think it's you have to go somewhere in the middle, because there is a reality that like it can't be Cooper's world and we live, or any of our kids' world and we live in it. So we're kind of middle of the road PDA followers.
Okay. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not acknowledged in the US, or is it acknowledged now or something?
It depends on who you talk to. It's quite
Okay.
acknowledged in the autism world, and especially autistic adults. It is
Mm.
quite acknowledged. It's not a diagnosis by like a DSM category, but it is as a profile very much acknowledged, and very much interlocking with an autism diagnosis. Or
Oh,
that's how most people see it. And not a behavior. I think what most people will say, or the way we look at it, is it is not looked at as a behavioral, um, not from a behavioral lens, but from an anxiety social lens, that this is a profile of kids that we work with in a way that is affirming of them and who they are. So I think the more you understand a demand avoidant profile, the more you can think about it in an affirming way of like, oh, A demand is going to make a child react. So I'm going to use not a demand and meet them in the middle and equalize with them over try to put a higher demand on them.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, I have to actually run to another meeting, but thank you guys, and I will see you next Monday, if not before.